Two major muscles are holding you back. Your hip flexors and your pec minors. As a society, we spend too much time sitting, so the hip flexors get short, and when you stand up, after 20 minutes, they pull your spine forward towards the leg, because the vertebrae are weaker compared to the femur. Given that it's a weaker spot, you gotta pull anteriorly. So now you have back pain. But it's not a back issue, it's a hip flexor issue, it's in the front. So what you need to do is stretch or work on your hip flexor, which should be stretch and strengthen. The same thing happens with your pectoralis minor, which goes from the shoulder blade to your ribs in the front. The shoulder blade moves, so it's weaker to the ribs, so it gets pulled anteriorly by, well, your phone, computer. Everything is in the front. How many times you go in the back? Not very often. Right? So there are two muscles you want to address often. And you can do that with your kettlebell. When you come up to the, through the get up, or you can grab the kettlebell and just go half kneeling. But once you get half kneeling, you're in this position, you have a great opportunity to pump and warm up your hip flexors and your pecs. The problem with traditional stretch is that if you stretch the muscle, you actually make it weaker for the training ahead. But if you use the opposite muscle to do the contraction, now you have a contract relax where the muscles help each other. If you squeeze your glutes, that leads to an inhibition of the hip flexors. If you can engage your shoulder blade and the muscles that hold the shoulder blade together, so your rhomboids and lower traps, mid traps, things like that, contracting those muscles leads to an inhibition on your pecs. It goes deeper than that, but that's a general overview. So you want to do is being active to activate your glutes and your shoulder blade muscles. So once you're here, what you just want to pump, you want to move your hip bone and your chest, your sternum forward relatively to your shoulder and your hip. So everything stays here, and you just lean forward with this knee, so this knee goes past the toes. You want to keep the heel on the ground, you pumping the hip and the chest at the same time. But it's important the kettlebell stays where it was, because that's your anchoring point, just like the floor is an anchoring point for your knee. So if I'm here, what you want to see is that my hip moves forward relative to my knee, and my chest moves forward relative to the kettlebell. Right? There is another thing to consider. If you get distended here, so if the distance between your sternum and your pubic bone increases too much, then you're arching your low back, and you can put your low back in harm's way. So the best you can, keep the distance between your sternum and your pubic bone short. It's gonna keep your abs engaged. And you won't move far forward, but whatever you do get will come from the right places. So don't get driven by how far you go. Feel the stretch on your shoulder, feel the stretch on the pecs and the engagement of the shoulder blade, feel the stretch on your hip flexor and the engagement of the glutes while the cylinder stays connected. All right, so you have to feel for it. There is not a distance you have to go for. Okay, so what you do is through the get up, I think it's easy because you should be doing get ups anyways. Right, so just get there to that. Get to that hip flexor position, and then pump the hip. So I'm working on my left hip flexor and my right pecs at the same time. Breathe in when you breathe out. Long breath out. If you want, after you've done few breaths long like that, you can do like little pumps at the end. So let's say you take a long breath, and then here take another one, and then right there at the end, that's more dynamic. You might not be ready for that yet, that's fine. Just stay longer with the other one. Let me show you the side to see how it looks like. Try to keep the kettlebell over the knee, give or take. Hold the weight on the shoulder blade, hold the hips on the glutes. It is my chest what I want to drive forward, not my head. Okay, the head stays over the shoulder relatively. From this side, it looks like this. And from there, you can continue to get up, come back down, or just put the kettlebell back down. Do that with the light weights. This is not a PR, this is a movement prep. Do it in your warm-ups, or just any day that you feel like opening up your hip flexors on your chest, for whatever reason you might have at work or whatnot. You'll love the feeling on your hips and your pecs. All you need is one kettlebell. It's phenomenal because the weight's behind the forearm versus a dumbbell or a bar that is resting directly over the bones. Hope you like it, enjoy it, have fun with that.